Please welcome to the stage Raj Kumar.
Hey everybody, it's so great to be here. I got to say, it is such a treat to be at the Clinton Global Initiative talking about social enterprise. I can tell you as a social entrepreneur myself, we started 25 years ago at DevX. We briefly used the term social enterprise, and then when we would get blank stares, we just dropped it. Around that same time, I wrote a paper for McKinsey trying to study how big is this social enterprise universe. And what I found is it's actually pretty small. At the time, I could only identify $1 billion social enterprise in the world. Everything else, even really big names at the time like Grameen Bank, were in the few $100 million. So there was a lot of talk, there was a lot of hype, but there wasn't a lot of real action. Fast forward 25 years, we're here today in a session where we're not just talking about social enterprise, we're talking about the ecosystem of social enterprise. It is now a $2 trillion industry. Okay, it represents some 200 million employees around the world. It's around 3% of businesses that are understood to possibly be in the social enterprise frame, depending on how you exactly define it. And so it's an incredible force. And that did not happen by accident. That happened because of the people you're going to meet on this stage today, people who've been leading on this issue for a long time. And I hope it's going to inspire many of you in this room who are in the space or want to get in the space to see what's possible and to see what the state of the art is in social enterprise. So we're thrilled to have this conversation today, and it wouldn't be possible without people like Regina Arrington, who is the CEO of Clinton Global Initiative University, who herself has led and supported social entrepreneurs and enterprises at Teach for America in the past, and now in her current role working with lots of social enterprises all over the country and all over the world. So thrilled to hand the mic over to you, Regina.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Oh, it's nice to see everyone's face. Welcome to the party. I keep saying CGI feels like you invited all your friends in, and then you finally get to see everybody. So can't thank you enough. I know you've been thanked, but we're going to do it again. Thank you so much for being here. I am the CEO of CGI University, and I'm so excited that we're in this space having this conversation about what social enterprise is and what the ecosystem can look like and be. I've been leading these two programs, CGI University, which is focused on early stage social entrepreneurs who are university students, undergrad students, grad students, because in all enterprise and all business development, you start with an idea, and we need more spaces for students to have great ideas. And so CGIU's existed since 2007, but then we realized that there's a missing space, and so we actually launched the CGI Fellowship earlier this year. You probably got an email or two from me. We had amazing interest in this program. Over 650 applicants came through, but we only selected 25 folks. And actually, can I have the fellows raise their hand if they are in the room? Doo-doo-doo. They represent 15 countries and 10 states in the US, and that kind of scale and scope really speaks to the kind of problem solving they're going to do, but beyond that, the businesses that they're going to be able to run that are actually helping their communities. And so the people that I work with on a daily basis are the ventures that dare to ask, how can we make a difference? And then take those concrete steps to go ahead and make the change that they're seeking. And they do this while keeping in term how they can have long-term solutions that can be scaled, that are equitable, and that are also inclusive at top of mind. I think we don't touch diversity a ton, but we understand the point of diversity is that we need as many people around the table to solve problems that we're not really thinking about. And our cohort's very diverse because they're the folks who are solving the problems. You know, go to the problem statement. That's what's really important here. And we want to continue to do so. And as a global community, we are faced with both unprecedented challenges and opportunities. And we have our 5 focus areas and tracks here, but from climate change to inequity, from healthcare to education, the scope of the issues we face requires new thinking, innovative solutions, and most importantly, intentional investment. You know, we like to ask a lot of questions, but sometimes we bear the lead about asking for money. Right? We don't want to do that. We want to be very loud. We want to be very honest in the same way that businesses are very clear, loud, and honest about investment. These, again, are just businesses. And social enterprises need resources to grow, scale, and achieve their full potential so they can actually help the world as we want them to. They need people, they need governments. They need entities to invest in their support structures and the broader ecosystem so they can flourish. And investing in these support systems is not just about finances, even though I said I'm going to ask you for a little money. It's also about mentoring. So actually, something that's very important within the fellowship is that we have a mentor model connected to it. Can I have anybody who is a CGI fellow mentor in the room raise their hand? All right, we got a couple here. And these are people who are connected to the CGI brand generally, and they're doing their own social impact work and have agreed to support and foster these other innovators to kind of move forward to their next level. We want to make sure that we're transforming communities, changing lives, creating opportunities, and visualizing a more just and equitable future. It's this commitment to social returns that excites me, truly. And here at CGI, we're committed to supporting the change makers who are driving social returns. The foundation, the Clinton Foundation, is dedicated to democratizing access to entrepreneurial and innovative resources, ideas, really leveraging the work and reputation of the foundation, the people and the power that you always see gathered in this room, to make sure that we're amplifying what works, which is, again, the theme of the space, to make sure we're creating pathways of possibility for emerging leaders. So thank you again so much for joining us. I'm going to pass the mic back to Raj.
Thank you, Regina. I'm going to ask our first panel to just join us on stage. I'll say your names as you're coming on up, but we have with us an incredible conversation with Sheila Johnson, the founder and CEO of the Salamander Collection. Please, Sheila, join me. Aurora James is the founder of Brother Vellies and the 15% Pledge. Welcome, Aurora. And Her Excellency Dr. Monique Nzanza Baganwa, who is the Deputy Chair of the African Union Commission. Dr. Monique, please join us. So Regina got into this a little bit, but the fact is the social enterprise brings something new to the table, in part when social enterprise represents communities that are otherwise unrepresented, right? Businesses that otherwise might not have a shot. And you have next to me people who have really led on this issue. And I want to just start with you, Aurora, if I could. You've got an incredible business, actually a few different businesses and a few different hats, but just start off with Brother Vellies. What is this amazing fashion brand that you've created?
No, sure. So I'm originally from Canada. My father was born and raised in Ghana, but my mom was adopted at birth. So she had no idea really where she came from. This was a time before 23andMe, right? And so she would always say to me in her kind of quest to understand culture, she would remind me of this Nigerian proverb that goes, until the lion has a historian, the hunter will always be the hero. And so she would tell me, we need to look for women's histories in out-of-the-box places. And so often that means fashion. So we would really look at fashion sort of as like an anthropological exercise. So when I got into my 20s and I was also trying to understand a little bit more about where my father came from, I started kind of traveling across Africa, and I ended up falling very much in love with the traditional Southern African shoe called a felskoen, which kind of started out with just being leather wrapped around the foot. It evolved to being 3 pieces of leather tacked together and then got a rubber sole. And when British people came to Southern Africa, they fell very much in love with it. They brought it back up to the UK. They renamed it a desert boot, and they launched the company that we all know today as Clark's. But that shoe shape is a traditional Southern African shoe. And so I had $3,500 in savings at the time, which is my entire life savings. And I made a batch of shoes at this workshop in South Africa and another one in Namibia, and brought it back to the Hester Street Fair in the Lower East Side of Manhattan and inadvertently launched my business. So that's sort of how it all started. And the goal was really just about, working with some of the best artisans all across the continent, and then eventually all across the world. So South Africa, Kenya, Morocco, Ethiopia, Burkina Faso, Haiti, Bali, Mali, the list goes on.
We'll never look at a pair of Clarks the same way.
Oh, no.
And
you can't.
And that is quite a story. And we're going to get a little bit more into some of what you've done, because the scale of what you've done goes well beyond your own business. But I want to get Sheila into the conversation. You are one of the most noted businesswomen entrepreneurs in the country. I happen to live in Washington, D.C., so, in Washington, D.C., this is royalty. The Mystics, the Warriors, right? I mean, the Capitals, all our sports teams are yours. I don't think there's another African-American woman in the country that owns as many professional sports teams. the very lucky among us have maybe stayed in a salamander property. It is an incredible set of businesses that you built and run. And I guess just as we are at this sort of stock-taking moment, thinking about what does it mean to be successful as a social enterprise, to do something that's about making money, but do something about the community too. What are some of the things you take away from this incredible career that you've had that's gotten you to this point?
Well, first of all, I can't believe that I'm even here. What I want you all to understand, I'm in my third act in life. First act was a concert violinist and played with Chicago Symphony, Youth Symphony. I'm going back for Civic Symphony, out of the University of Illinois School of Music. Continued to perform, wrote textbooks through Boozy and Hawks. Then, in the late 70s, started a company called Black Entertainment Television. So then into the media business. That's the second act in life. This third act, which has led me now to the hospitality business, is probably the happiest that I've ever been. And I have to really talk about why. Every act that I've been through, there's been some adversity. I have been headwinds of racism, mental health issues, abuse, you name it. But every one of the areas that I have had to experience has led me to this third act in life. I don't regret any of it. That adversity has made me stronger than I've ever been. Mm-hmm. So to build this third company, this is mine. Mm. And that's what, to me, is so pivotal, that I was able to do this myself. But I learned a lot, and I've been able to then layer on everything that I went through, all the lessons learned, that I've been able to get to the point of now having 6 hotels, hopefully to add on 2 more. There are not women in this space of hospitality. There are some that are there, but not to the scale of luxury. I mean, my hotel in Middleburg is now one of 13 in the world to win the Forbes Triple 5-Star Award. Wow. And we just picked up a Michelin key last week. So we must be doing something right in the luxury business. And also my hotel in Charleston just got the Michelin key. So I forgot your question.
Well, no, we are getting a sense of the love you put into the businesses that you build, and I love to hear that it's now this third act is.
It is,
where
but
you're really
I
feeling
also
it.
want you to understand you have to diversify too, and you did talk about community, and it's about affecting the double bottom line. So that's how I got into the sports business, because lessons learned, never burn your bridges. And it was a man by the name of Abe Poland that came to me, and Susan O'Malley. And she was the first woman president of a sports franchise, which is the one in Washington. And she says, Abe would like to speak to you about something. And I said, well, what is it? She says, I want you to be the face of the Washington Mystics. And I said, what do you mean by the face of? But I knew exactly what she was talking about. I want you to buy the team. Now, what does that mean when women are not given this opportunity at all? So when that door opened, I remember calling my attorney and saying, I've just been offered a basketball team. He says, Sheila, don't do it. And I said, but if you had been offered that team or to get into sports, what would you do? And he was quiet.
Is he still your attorney?
No. So anyway, I said, you just answered my question. I'm going to go in there, but I'm going to make this deal sweeter. It's not just the women's team, because I saw the financials on it. But we're in a different place now. I said I want to buy into the Wizards and to the NHL Capitals. And I want to play in the same sandbox as all the men that are in there as partners. And he says, I love this. I said, you get a twofer. You get a woman and an African American. So what that does, that layers my brand. Salome, it's just not about the hotels, and we can get into that later because I don't want to take up all the time. But I have a story to tell. But it's just great to be able to understand how you have to layer your brand. You just can't be tunnel focused and doing one thing, because there's a lot of other stories out.
No, we have so much to learn from what you have
Yeah.
done and accomplished. It's incredible. I want to bring Dr. Monique into the discussion. You're one of the African continent's senior-most executives in government, the African Union. You're the deputy chair. You've had leadership roles across the government of Rwanda in a senior places, including the central bank. When you think about social enterprise and where it fits in, because you spend a lot of time thinking about financial inclusion, how do you bring everyone with you when it comes to economic growth? Where do you think the kinds of enterprises we're talking about today actually fit in?
Thank you so much, and congratulations, my sisters around on the panel for your achievements. Coming from the public sector, of course, social entrepreneurs, it's just beyond business like they have witnessed. But I would argue that actually there are many social entrepreneurs, especially in our context as Africa and other developing countries, that are not recognized. Just because they are still operating in the informal, they are still very small, but the spirit and the philosophy that is behind their action is exactly the same. So our work has been actually to try and support them so that they can go up the ladder, what we call the ladder. So from each step of the ladder, you go higher and higher and higher. And as you go, you're also pulling someone behind you. I can also relate to them in a way, and not because I'm a business person, I'm not. I'm far from that. But in my previous life back in my country in Rwanda, we tried to put up a women's organization that we wanted to be like really come up with a fund that is going to be supporting those women I'm talking about. It's been now 12 years. We have put down our capital, which is small, maybe 10,000 per woman. We are like 10 or so women. We haven't managed to get off the ground because, you don't have enough, support. When you go to partners, they want to just support not-for-profit. But how can you sustain a not-for-profit when you want it to be sustainable so that you can help others? So I feel sometimes social entrepreneurs are facing this issue because they look at it and then they look at about you. But it's not about you. It's about also what all these benefits you want to bring about. So I feel there is need to have a framework that is really recognizing those challenges and also supporting the handholders who are doing it for the others, but they end up earning, but it's not from themselves in the first place.
I'm so glad you brought that up because there are places where really the market for social enterprise is broken. And I think in many places it's where people assume you're serving the bottom of the pyramid, the lowest income consumer. This has got to be a nonprofit. Or, you know what, this is something that has to fit in a traditional big corporate box or a public sector box. And you've got a social entrepreneur there banging their head against the door saying, let us in, we can do something different. And there isn't that access. And that makes me think a little bit, Aurora, of what you've done with the 15% pledge. Because you've basically said, I know there are entrepreneurs out there who are hitting their head against the door. They're trying, but they don't have that access.
Yes.
We've got to create it. Tell people a little bit about this.
Sure. So, having started Brother Velle's at the flea market, as I mentioned to you guys, and went on to be quite successful. We sold millions of dollars worth of shoes and bags, which is wonderful. But in 2020, in the wake of Mr. Floyd's murder, I was getting a lot of calls and text messages from major corporations and retailers, largely ones that we were partnered with in some capacity, kind of being like, well, what should we do? And someone called me on behalf of a major retailer and said, they just donated $10 million, but people are still angry. Like, people are still rioting outside. And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, they're headquartered in Minneapolis. I feel like people are pretty upset there, And they were like, well, they donated $10 million and they love Black people. And I was like, whoa, cool. But what does it mean to love Black people as a major corporation, And she's like, well, I just told you $10 million. And I was like, whoa, well, with all due respect, like Black people spend more than $10 million at any given day at that store. And I really feel like we should actually all be doing what we do best in service of those who've been historically excluded. Now, as a major retailer, what does that mean? If you're a major retailer, you're phenomenal at selling product. If we think back to 2020, we were projecting over 44% of Black-owned businesses were going to close as a result of the pandemic. 90% didn't get access to the first round of PPP money. And so I said to her, Black people are almost 15% of the population. Major retailers should consider committing 15% of their shelf space to Black-owned businesses. We've long understood, right, that talent is distributed equally, but opportunity and access is not. And so what I was hoping for was that other Black-owned businesses could get some of that opportunity and access. So I wrote down sort of my train of thought in the notes section of my phone, which I think is where all of our brilliant ideas are stored. And I did what we normally don't do, which is I screenshot it and I post it to Instagram. And then I tagged a bunch of retailers I thought should commit to the idea. And then I turned my phone off because I was super nervous. And on Sunday, that was a Saturday. Sunday, I stayed up overnight, launched a petition on Monday at noon. Tuesday, we started registering it to become a nonprofit. Wednesday, we had 100,000 signatures. And by day 10, Sephora became the first major corporation to commit to the 15% pledge. Thank you. And we're now working with 29 of the biggest retailers and companies across North America. They all signed multi-year contracts with us. Nordstrom, for example, is a 10-year contract. It was signed by Pete Nordstrom. So it really has to be a top-down activity. We've put over 800 Black-owned brands onto the shelves of retailers, which is pretty exciting. And thank you, guys. And through those contractual commitments, we're now in the process of reallocating over $16 billion to Black-owned businesses, making it the largest economic driver for Black entrepreneurs that's ever existed in the country, which is pretty phenomenal.
It's unbelievable. 16 billion.
Thank you. And I can't leave this stage without telling you guys one really important thing, which I think takes it home. I mentioned to you that I had $3,500 in my savings account when I launched Brother Bellies, and I had been doing a bunch of odd jobs that people would refer me to, and it really meant the world to me when people believed in my creative vision, and one of those people was Sheila Johnson. And so this is the second time that I've ever been around her. But I think that it's really proof, right? It's proof that what happens when you give women opportunities, they turn around and they pass it forward. So I just want to say thank you so much, Sheila, because in so many ways I wouldn't be here without you. So,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I remember when the 15% pledge was announced. I remember the fanfare. I had no idea until we were getting ready for this session how big it's become, right? And it shows you this opportunity in social procurement as they talk about it, right? But big businesses that have to purchase a lot or are the channel for many of us to find products and services, they are the gatekeepers.
yes.
And there's such an opportunity if you could open that up and diversify it. And that's what so much of the social enterprise ecosystem and movement, I think, is really trying to do.
Yes. But it also, to your point, like it can't all be nonprofit, right? Like I also had to raise a fund because then these businesses were getting onto the shelves and they were like, oh, okay, like we now have a $2 million purchase order from Sephora, but how do I pay for it? And then they were going out and meeting with private equity people who didn't understand them, didn't understand their product, didn't understand their customer. And they were coming to me saying, like, I don't want to take money from this dude. He doesn't understand me. He doesn't understand my brand. This is a lifelong partnership. And so then, okay, now we have to solve the next problem. I had to learn the ins and outs of private equity and figure that out. So now I've allocated over $25 million over the past 24 months. And you know what else? I swear to you guys, I believe that we will have better returns than all of the other guys at the fund just doing what we're doing, which is investing in Black women.
Sheila, I wonder, you had to go through this at an earlier time, right? You were probably very often the only woman, the only person of color in the boardroom making the case. What are some of the things you took away from that experience that you are bringing to your work now?
Connections. I had to make sure that I made all the right connections. And I have to say, with the sports teams, that really opened a door because that put me in front of captains of industry who wanted to be in this, well, not in the sports, but they wanted to go to games. They wanted tickets. Sure. You know, so you have to learn to play this game. But more importantly, you know, I'm listening to you, and this is just incredible. We face different ways in which we have to build the driveway to success. And one of the things that I've learned is to take my vehicle of hotels to be able to pay it forward, to really bring in diversity and other like minds. And have done it through the arts. So now I'm going to go all the way back to Act One. The arts have been really the foundation of my life. And the reason why I say that, because when you're in the arts world, it helps you to think out of the box. You're able to be a problem solver. So now I'm in the hotel business, and I'm like, I don't want to be like, sorry, Hilton, a Marriott, or anything else. I am in the luxury business, but I also want to bring diversity into my world. The way I've been able to do it is, first of all, we have started with Kwame Anawachi, who has Tatiana here. I got to know Kwame. He got put out of the Intercontinental Hotel, his restaurant. I was so angry because I'd been eating there. I loved his food. I loved his energy. There's a young African-American man who I found to be one of the most talented chefs I'd ever come across. I hired him. I said, you're coming to Salamander. So I worked with him. We started something called the Family Reunion. And the reason why we did that, I brought 43 of the top chefs from all over the country together who had lost their restaurants. It was a 3.5-day retreat where people paid for tickets, and we were able to help bring awareness to these incredible chefs. They cooked for us all day, but we also had panel discussions in the morning, and I brought the banks in to have them talk about getting their restaurants funded, to get money, for them to be invested, both men and women. But I really wanted to put together a safe place where people of color can really get down to the nitty-gritty of what we're suffering through. And I figured, why not use my hotels to bring these chefs together? It has become so powerful. We now finished up our 4th year. They've all got restaurants. I've been visiting some of them in Chicago, all over the place. It has been probably one of the most incredible experiences, but we did it creatively without being in the face of white folks, okay? To say you gotta do it. We did it in a safe way, in a fun way. We are sponsored by Food and Wine magazine. Hunter says, Sheila, I get it now. Where you would never see chefs of color at Food and Wine in Aspen. So what did I do? I picked up the Aspen Institute, Aspen Meadows. That's one of my properties. So
Now you're there.
this is what you have to do. You got to be strategic. And my executive team goes, why are we going after that? I said, look at that board. Look at that board. I want my brand to roll off their tongues. So then I bring Food and Wine magazine. We start Juneteenth in Aspen. They've never had that there. So that's another thing you do. We started a film festival. I moved into a little town that, it's all in my book. I don't want to go into it, but I had the racial fight of my life there, where I built Salamander Resort and Spa, the one that's now won all the awards. But we brought a film festival there. I was on the board of Sundance. Robert Redford came to visit me. It was way before I put the shovel in the ground. He looked down on the town, took him up on the property. It was all belonged to Pamela Harriman. I bought the property. It's nice when you have a little money from selling another.
It helps.
And he said, Sheila, you should put a film festival here. And I never forgot it. Because the problem is once the resort was built, how was I going to get eyeballs on that property? We were in the middle of nowhere, sitting on 340 acres. We are now in our 12th year. We start in 2 weeks. But the reason why I wanted to do that was to open up communication. Here was a community that never stepped outside the Little Horse community purely white. They never had diversity in there. It was a way of educating that community. I did the film The Butler with Lee Daniels, and we showed, I had Lee at the very first one, and I remember there was a man, a white man, sitting in the front row, and he started crying uncontrollably after the movie. I knew why he was crying. I said, what's wrong? He says, please forgive me. Please forgive me. But what we did is we opened up the dialogue of the racial tensions that have been going on in the country. We were able to talk about that with our directors, with our actors. So we're getting ready to go into it for our 12th year now, and we've got Steve McQueen coming, Isabella Rossellini. I mean, we have got celebrities coming into this little town. Yeah. But we're able to talk about all of these issues that are going on politically in this country. I've got Dave Carvel coming, and Madeline, his wife.
Sure.
I mean, and this is a way of trying to solve these problems and addressing these issues that are going on right now, because history keeps repeating itself. But we have got to be the voice. I had to get my voice out there in the world.
You've done it.
In some way.
Yeah, you have done it. And we're all going to be there, I can tell you, at this next film festival. We'll be there. I want Dr. Monique to close us out, if you don't mind.
Oh, 20 seconds?
Yeah, we'll go a little longer
Oh, yes.
than that.
Yeah.
I guess,
Good.
Listen,
That's comforting.
the reason
Yeah.
I want to go to you, though, is because when I think of the African continent, I know probably a lot of people in this room have spent time there. It is a continent of entrepreneurs. There's entrepreneurs everywhere, often struggling against the odds. Like, we're hearing success stories, but you started out saying how tough it is. So how do you, in a position now, a policy-making position, you're thinking about this community at CGI, the multilateral banks, the international organizations, the NGOs, the investors, the whole ecosystem. What can we do to make sure the next entrepreneurs aren't stuck, but we can have more success stories like the ones we've heard at this stage?
Yeah, sure. One, on the policy level, as African Union, we have come up with a framework to support social and solidarity economy. Because we want to raise awareness, we want to put a model framework to support countries also to think about how holistically to support these initiatives, and also give it the African face, which is informal, which is mainly rural, which is female, which is people living in conflict areas and so on and so forth. And how do you do it in that context to support them? We have also put up financial instruments. For instance, there is a partnership that is coming up with an African Women Impact Fund, which is now seeking to raise $1 billion for the fund of funds. So that fund is supposed to be funding women who are fund managers themselves to support women, SMEs, and other SMEs that are struggling and that are of impact in the communities. So we are still mobilizing the 1 billion. The fund is sitting and managed by Standard Bank in South Africa on behalf of the African Union Women Leaders Network and the African Union Commission and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. We came together as three institutions to set up this fund. Initially, also, as my personal commitment to the decade for financial and economic inclusion of women, which is running from 2020 to 2030, I have been spearheading a framework called Women and Youth Financial and Economic Inclusion 2030 initiative. We want to unlock $100 billion go to these women, youth, and SMEs on the continent. Not because we have money, but because we want to put a framework where we can harness people like you, Sheila, and others, and the financial institutions, and the philanthropy, and the impact investors to come and join us, to come and work with these women, like my organization, New Faces, New Voices, Rwanda chapter. We wanted to put the Rugori Fund in place. We are still struggling. We need people who can come and trust in us, trust in our leadership, invest in those initiatives, because as you do, you'll be pulling women together. So that framework is there. We are advocating. We want to make this partner come together, synergize. Don't duplicate each other. Don't cheat women and you say that we are doing this when you're not. We want them to be transparent and report on what exactly they are doing and where and what is it achieving. Actually, these women and youth come and be the ones to testify that life is being changed because, they have been invested in. So these are some of the efforts that we are doing. And my pitch and my call for these successful women here in the business owners is, what can you do to support such initiatives of really social entrepreneurs who are dying with their ideas in their hearts? They cannot bring them to fruition. They're facing a lot of challenges, and most of which is financial access and also access to skills and entrepreneurship. Right. So those are some of the things that we would wish to see ways and means of how we can connect.
So much.
I wish we didn't have to end.
I know. Believe me, if we weren't getting the hook, I'd stay up here all day.
But I just want to mention something. I started a program with Sashiko Kuno called We Capital. And we have raised, Jardy, I think over $50 million, where we are reinvesting in women businesses who are doing social impact. Now, this is not charity, and I think all the women have to understand the perception out there is that we're always charity. We are not charity. When you do things like that and you try to pick companies that you want to work with, you're there to support them. You want them to make money. And the reason why we've got now close to 20 women in this fund is they're going to make money back. We want them to be successful. We're trying to teach them how to fish. And that's what's really important. You just can't do this as a charity because it diminishes us. I mean, I've been going through it with the WNBA. We're not a charity anymore. We're making money now.
Making real money now.
Media.
It's a real business.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just so much to talk about. It's too bad. This is.
I could stay up here with you all day, Sheila. It is
because I used to work with CARE, and I was in Rwanda. Oh. Yeah, I know the impact that women are making in Rwanda. They are running that country.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Listen, if you didn't believe it before this panel, hopefully you know progress is investable. Okay, that's what I'm taking away. And I want you to help me thank this incredible group of women for what they brought to the CGI stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, guys. Amazing. Listen, we are continuing with the program. I want to welcome our next speaker to the stage. That's Bridget Helms, who is the Executive Director of the Miller Center for Social Entrepreneurship at Santa Clara University. Come on up, Bridget.
All right.
Please, just grab one. Yeah.
All right. Very much on point to the last conversation. This summer, I met a smallholder farmer in Gitungura, Kenya. He was reverently referred to as the deacon in his community. And the deacon, like so many other smallholder farmers, faced real challenges in making a sustainable living. Now, the deacon is a customer of Sistema Bio, a social enterprise that delivers biodigester technology, training, and finance that enables farmers to convert waste, animal waste, into both renewable energy and fertilizer. Today, the deacon no longer has to rely on unsustainable greenhouse gas emitting fuels like coal and wood, and he's cultivating specialty mushrooms and other products that are earning him, boosting his income by a couple $1,000s a month. Now, Sistema Bio is one of many, we have hundreds actually in our network of social enterprises that are making a real difference, literally changing lives, increasing incomes, improving health outcomes, and reducing carbon emissions. But these entrepreneurs, as we have heard, face serious funding hurdles that impede their ability to scale their impact. Because many impact investors are looking for a certain level of market rate returns and hockey stick growth, many of the entrepreneurs in our network and beyond, they just don't grow like that, but they are viable businesses that are transforming lives and communities. So we are in a situation where we need to urgently rethink and reinvent the impact funding ecosystem, and we need to do it now. So if I told you that you could take a $50,000 investment and that would ultimately stimulate $20 million of investment into a company that has this kind of impact, would you do it? Yes, of course. I think we would all do it because that's, why you're in this room, right? So let me tell you how we did it. Miller Center Capital, the investment arm of Miller Center for Social Entrepreneurship, invested $50,000 in Sistema Bio on terms that were so risky that other investors really would shy away and did shy away. We were able to then syndicate in from our network another $500,000 that then enables Sistema Bio to go and raise $5 million, which will eventually lead them to be able to access $20 million in carbon credits. So that's how you turn $50,000 into $20 million. Yeah, this is what's working. It's what's working. Impact-first investment is already working. At Miller Center, we are absolutely committed to leveraging our resources to drive meaningful change. And so far, with this transformational and innovation fund, it's a venture philanthropy fund that we've launched, we've managed to leverage 10 to 1. For every $1 that we've invested, we've pulled in $10 over the last couple of years in our pilot. And I'm here to announce, I'm so excited today to announce our Clinton Global Initiative commitment to action to raise and deploy $20 million fund that will catalyze $200 million and improve the lives of 200 million people around the world. By investing in groundbreaking social entrepreneurs like Sistema Bio, we are taking concrete steps to end global poverty and protect the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. I got to say, I've been coming to CGI for well over a decade. These commitments to action never get old. That is an incredible thing you're doing. Thank you for bringing it to the stage. We're going to have a quick lightning round to just really bring home kind of who are the social entrepreneurs out there that are doing this work. You're going to get to hear from a few of them. So I'm going to read them out now, and then they're going to come up one by one and really quickly give you a little bit about what they're doing. We've got Dr. Obianju Helen Okoye. Obianuju Helen Okoye, who is the Visualize Healthcare co-founder and CEO, followed by Sam Tisher, who's the Chief Reef Officer at Coral Vita, followed by Nitesh Kumar Jangir, who's the co-founder of InExcel Technologies. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Okoye. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Visualize Healthcare in Chicago. I'm also a 2024 CGI Fellow. At just 12 years old, I watched my father collapse from undiagnosed type 2 diabetes. This traumatic experience underscored the importance of effective care coordination, something that saved his life and allowed him to thrive for another 24 years. This is a conviction that I carried into my role during the COVID-19 pandemic as the Chief Clinical Officer of one of the largest community health centers in Chicago. Here, I confronted firsthand the severe limitations of our healthcare system, a system failing those it intended to serve. Daily, we face heartbreaking challenges. Messages like, I missed the bus, I couldn't find a ride, I forgot. Simple words that signify massive barriers in healthcare access and led to life-threatening delays in care. From these profound challenges, Visualize Healthcare was born. Our mission is simple, yet ambitious, to bridge the communication gap in underserved communities, both in the US and globally. Our AI-driven web-based platform and mobile app allows clinics and patients to manage care seamlessly, creating personalized care journeys, ensuring appointments are kept, medications are taken, and patients are connected to the support that they need. Patients in clinics receive timely alerts, and automated preset workflows are used in creating interventions and providing comprehensive care. Right now, we're currently in a network of 3 clinics in rural Arkansas, impacting over 4,000 patients, directly addressing social determinants of health. Being part of the CGI Fellows Program has been transformative. It has provided us with invaluable resources and a robust network that has accelerated our growth and sharpened our focus on what works. To close, I invite each of you, leaders in your respective fields, to consider how platforms like ours could transform patient outcomes in your communities. Many healthcare centers here in the US and even globally lack the resources to implement such systems. Together, we can change that narrative and ensure that no patient is left behind because of logistical failures. Can you visualize a world where healthcare works for those that need it the most? Well, look this way because we're building it. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. I'm going to start with a quick poll. If you think a coral is a plant, will you raise your hand? Okay, animal? Rock? All right, so a coral is an animal that makes rock for its skeleton and has plants living inside of it, which I think is a pretty cool 3-for-1. I am the co-founder and chief reef officer of Coral Vita. My name is Sam Teicher. We are a CGI Greenhouse Fellow as well, and we are the inaugural winner of Prince William's Revive Our Oceans Earthshot Prize. And I and my team are working to help keep the world's coral reefs alive. We are looking at how, aside from the magic and the wonder of coral reefs, they are one of the most valuable ecosystems on the planet. There's 1 billion people and 25% of all marine life that depends on the single ecosystems. They protect coastlines from storms. They power tourism economies. There are hotels that benefit from reefs being there. They sustain fisheries. There's medicines on the market that come from coral reef compounds, but we've lost half the world's reefs since the 1970s, and we're on track to lose over 90% by 2050. So the best thing to do is to stop killing coral reefs. Our leaders need to step up on that one. Just like we can plant trees for reforestation, we can grow and plant corals for reef restoration, and we are doing this as a for-profit. So the last panel was talking about how there's a lot of assumptions about nonprofits, this, that, and the other. We're looking at how we can create a commercial model, a restoration economy where we fund nature, where we invest in communities and good science so that we can then scale the impact needed to keep reefs alive for the future. And we started off with a $1,000 grant between my co-founder and I in grad school. And 10 years later, have signed a lead investor for the first ever Series A investment round for a coral restoration company. And I think what's most important, beyond obviously everyone coming and joining us to plant corals, is recognizing this chicken and egg gap that exists for social entrepreneurs. Whether they're environment, whether they're women, whether it's education, there are so many good ideas that are struggling and dying on the vine with people with plenty of money out there, but writing big checks and say, talk to us when you're bigger, talk to us when you're larger, but how can you get there if that isn't happening? And we're fortunate enough to now be at this place where we're raising a Series A, but it was indicative, I think, of how the social enterprise community has a real opportunity and critical need to invest in those early stage social entrepreneurs so that we could see the change we want to see in the world. And again, our name is Coral Vita, and hopefully y'all will come plant corals with us in the Bahamas one day soon. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nitesh. I'm co-founder of Inexa Technologies. We are a Bangalore-based medical technology company. I started my career building weapons like missiles and drones. Once I visited a rural hospital in my village, and what I saw that some of the technologies which I was building to build this weapon can be used in medical devices, in the technology which can save life. And that's what we do today, to use the technology which was killing people, to use the same technology to save people. To give you an example, we have a technology called SAS, which is one of the world's most advanced respiratory support system for premature babies. But this is the only system in the world which does not require continuous supply of power, doesn't require compressed oxygen, doesn't require compressed air, not just delivers the therapy, but monitors it. Ensure that the world-class gold standard therapy is available to everyone across the globe, regardless of the place they belong to. Today, there are states in India where each and every hospital is using this technology to deliver respiratory support to these babies. Now we have expanded to multiple other countries. We got our first few orders from Aga Khan University in Tanzania, and now we are bringing that tech here. By taking that whole wave, that the most advanced technologies require the really high resource, we are using it other way, that most advanced technologies are actually more helpful when they are deployed in the least resource settings. That's where you can take the advantage of these techs. Here is another advantage, another technology we have. We call it Fetalite. We call it Fetalite. It's a wearable pregnancy monitoring technology, which goes on mother's belly. We extract fetal ECG, mother's ECG, and uterine contraction through it, compile all that data, and tell mothers that their baby is doing fine, tell doctors your patient is doing fine. This same technology today is getting used with the top hospitals as well as in the remote tribal areas, making sure that health equity is a reality to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, incredible to see how the good work of many of you is actually playing out in the real world and social enterprises. We've got one more commitment to action we're going to hear from, and that's from Lorraine Maluka, who's the CEO of Malaika.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here because last year I was here as part of the Greenhouse cohort 2023. So today being here as a commitment maker is really, evidence of the good work that comes from this. So to start off, I'm Lorraine. I am a co-founder and CEO of Malaika. We are a maternal health startup that is transforming the pregnancy journey for women in sub-Saharan Africa. When I was 8 years old, I had an incident that, was changed the trajectory of my life. That is when I decided I'm going to become a gynecologist. And this is because I unfortunately lost an aunt of mine to a maternal mortality. So one day she was fine. We were having dinner. She goes to hospital and doesn't come back. And we never got to meet the baby she was carrying. So I decided that I'm going to become a gynecologist to fight these tragedies of mothers losing their lives when giving birth. But despite getting to my goal of becoming a gynecologist, it was very frustrating to see that there are so many women who are dying of preventable deaths. This continued to happen, the bulk of them being in sub-Saharan Africa. Every 2 minutes, a pregnant lady dies, either while she's pregnant or during childbirth. So this frustration now led me to co-founding Malaika. And what we're doing at Malaika is really transforming the way mothers are experiencing pregnancy. Through our hybrid model, we're able to hold the mother's hand from the point where she gets pregnant up until her baby is delivered, up until 6 months old, and we're doing this in a hybrid model. Up to date, we've been able to support over 2,000 women with our program, and we have been able to do this while building a sustainable business model for the middle-income mothers. It was really important for us to build a business model that is sustainable so that we can be able to have impact that can be inclusive of even the low-income mothers. For the low-income mothers, we've been able to support them. This is through partnerships with the German government, the Swiss government, and a number of foundations, and we've been able to demonstrate that our model actually has impact in low-income communities. We've been able to really see that it does work even for the low-income moms. And so for today, Malaika is really proud to present our Clinton Global Initiative Commitment to Action, whereby we will be looking to support low-income mothers building a business model that works for them. Our target is to get to 10,000 low-income mothers in Kenya by 2028, ensure that they are getting access to quality pregnancy care and safe birth. We will be doing this through adapting our services and really leveraging our model to ensure that these low-income mothers are able to get healthy outcomes across all these economic levels. Thank you.
Much. Congratulations on that commitment. It's fantastic. And it's a great example of what Dr. Monique, I think, was talking about earlier, that there are so many opportunities like this where we can serve customers, in this case, pregnant mothers, and provide better care. So congrats on that commitment. I want to invite our panelists for the next panel up on stage. We have with us an incredible and esteemed group. Gilbert Hongbo is with us, the Director General of the International Labor Organization. We have Alexandra van der Ploeg, the head of CSR at SAP. And we have David Heath, the co-founder and CEO of Bombas. Come on in. This is a very much an only at CGI kind of panel, okay? An incredible group. And we've been talking a little bit so far today in a way that might make it sound easy to do social enterprise. So we're gonna get into why is this a little bit hard, actually, and what can other institutions do, big corporations, UN and international organizations. How do we actually create the kind of partnerships that lead to this ecosystem growing and getting to the scale we all want to see? Gilbert, I want to start with you, because you've had every hat you can wear in the UN system. You now lead the International Labor Organization. You led IFAD. You've had major roles across the UN. You were, of course, the prime minister of your home country in Togo. So you've seen this from a lot of perspectives. Now you are trying to lead the UN forward on kind of a solidarity and social change economy. What is that? What is that worldview, and where does social enterprise fit in?
Quite frankly, if you look at ILO right now, ILO, for those of you who don't know, International Labour Organization was founded in 1919 as a result of the First World War. And its preamble simply says, there is no lasting peace without social justice. So this is at the core of what we do. And therefore, the whole principle, the whole modus operandi of the social and the solidarity economy fits squarely in our mandate, in what we do on a daily basis, i.e. making sure that you bring in the economy, you bring in the social, you bring in the solidarity, and the environmental. But all of that, the glue from amongst all four of them, the glue is a human-centered approach. And this is what this, social solidarity is for us. But for many years, what we have noticed is, as you said, is so diverse. And listen to the first panel we have, which was quite very brilliant, inspiring panel. What kept coming and was for me, very, very interesting is leave no one behind on that. So what we're trying to do is to bring the different actors from the private sector, from the international organization, from the government, or different fora, to make sure that there is a clear understanding first of the direction that we are taking, what we're talking about, and what are the challenges, and how do we collectively deal with those challenges. Because despite what we have heard, we still have a lot of communities, individuals that have ideas, that are looking for social financing, that are not able to access it. Yeah. So for us is to see how do we continue pushing the envelope forward.
Yeah, the system still sometimes doesn't know what to do with a social entrepreneur. They understand when a nonprofit comes and asks for a grant. They understand when a business says, hey, I'm here just to compete. But when someone comes and says, I actually have a double bottom line, I'm trying to do two things in the world, the system sometimes doesn't know where to put them. And I wonder, SAP, one of the world's biggest technology companies, how are you creating space now for these social entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so we've come to a point where we've integrated working with the social enterprise sector completely into the core of our business. But that's not how we started. 14 years ago, I was probably the only person in SAP who cared. And that was because I was involved in the very first social entrepreneurship project that we did, 2010, earthquake in Haiti, devastating, of course. Professor Muhammad Yunus was in Davos. He met our CEO, and they came together and they said, look, a lot of companies or a lot of people are investing in disaster relief now, humanitarian aid, but what the country actually needs is long-term economic development. And Professor Muhammad Yunus, you know, being who he is, he obviously immediately went down the route of social business and convinced us to help set up an infrastructure for social business. It didn't work. We've really, really failed. Very, very miserably, and for lots of different reasons. But I was one of the people who was working on this project, and it was a pivotal moment for me because I realized that, yes, it fails in the case of Haiti, but it didn't mean that it had to keep failing. And that there was an incredible role to play by connecting the private sector with social enterprises. And that's what we were doing for 14 years. To the point where it's completely core to our business now. And there's basically a number of different ways how we're doing that. But I think one of the key ones I want to highlight, and it was already mentioned in the previous panel, and you started talking about social procurement. You know, if you're looking about, we've heard so many times capital, right, that is required. One way of unleashing capital for the social enterprise sector is by stimulating more revenue generation for social enterprises. And one way of doing that is integrating them into existing supply chains, right? We as corporations, we all purchase goods and services every single day. What do we base those decisions on today? It's cost of product, it's quality, and it's quantity of product. Now, how about we add a fourth dimension to it, and that's impact. Right? And if we can show that social enterprises can deliver products and services at the same cost, same quality, same quantity, but with the added benefit of creating social and environmental impact, why would you as a corporation not decide to do that? So everything that we've been doing now is figuring out how do we do that integration. And luckily, as a tech company, we have one of the largest B2B marketplaces. It's called the SAP Business Network. It moves $5.3 trillion annually of trade via that platform. If you can shift some of that spend towards social enterprises, we unleash significantly more funding to social enterprises than corporate philanthropy can do.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's like 5% of the global economy. I mean, that's a very large platform. You know, in one way, I thought maybe I had the CEO of Bombas beat in terms of my sock game today. But of course, there's no way to beat him because what you've been doing with your business is really changing lives all over the country. Tell us a little bit about the story of Bombas, just so people can understand this incredible innovation that you brought to the market.
Yeah, so thanks. So I started Bombas 12 years ago. I came up with the idea about 14 years ago. And I went to school for entrepreneurship. I knew I wanted to start a business, and entrepreneurs, you know, solve problems, right? And the problem that came to me was on a post on Facebook, I saw a quote from the Salvation Army that said, "Socks are the #1 most requested clothing item at homeless shelters." And I didn't immediately go, aha, there's a business here. I just kind of sat there and said, like, wow, it's pretty sad. Here's an item of clothing that I don't spend more than a few seconds a day thinking about, and yet it's perceived as a luxury item for 600,000 people living here in the U.S. and, you know, even more globally. And, you know, taking inspiration from other social entrepreneurs before me, Tom's, Warby Parker, who had kind of pioneered the buy one, give one model, I was like, wow, this is a really good solution for this problem, because when I kind of dug into the issue, you know, people don't donate used socks for obvious reasons. We wear through them. There's hygiene reasons. So it forces shelters to have to go out and purchase these products on already very limited budgets. So I kind of thought, well, if we can, you know, catalyze the consumer to purchase a high quality item that they're already purchasing, and then, you know, naturally build in the donation model, if we can scale this thing, it should help offset the need for these organizations to go out of pocket and purchase them themselves. So that's what we did, but we didn't just come out with a mission and say, okay, buy our product because we've got some great mission. I think, we were successful because we like every other kind of disruptive business, we looked at the marketplace and figured out where the opportunity was to create a better product, a better solution, a better brand, a better customer experience around a product that even the people who were producing these products at scale didn't really think about, didn't care about. It was mostly an afterthought, and dominated by mostly low cost, low quality, consumable type of products. And so our hypothesis was, if we can create a better product and get the consumer to care, and then tie it to this mission and have that be in the DNA from day one, and have it be in the unit economics from day one, then this should hopefully be able to scale and help solve this problem. 10 years later, we've donated over 140 million items of clothing to over 4,000 shelter partners here in the US. And we've had giving partners reach back out to us that have said, we've been able to send kids from our community to college for the money that we've saved. We've been able to redirect funds to, services within our organization to actually help get people out of the streets and into jobs. So when we started the company, we thought, we're just providing a bit of dignity, a bit of comfort to somebody who otherwise doesn't get it. But at scale, we realized that the impact is much larger than we had ever anticipated.
Does anybody here own a pair of Bombas besides me? Okay, so
thank you, guys.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who don't, this is a chance to be part of it, right? And that's what's so powerful, is that you get a sense that, hey, I'm part of that story too. I feel proud listening just because I own a pair. There's something about it, and I think you said something really profound there at the beginning, which is the mission connects with the business to actually make both work. It made you think differently about what it means to be a sock company, and I guess I can understand that connection to people, to consumers like us who have to make a choice and buying a product and say, yeah, I want to pick that one from the shelf. But I guess, Alex, just thinking about large scale corporates that are going back to those three items you talked about earlier, don't you get pushback from companies who say, but why do I have to care about this other metric? It sounds nice, but unlike a consumer who might vote with their heart, pay a little more money for a product or feel they're getting something better, what do the companies feel they're getting? And are you able to change the story to them too and get them to see what David has said, that this is going to change your business too?
Yeah. That's such a hard question, but a good one. Look, I think the key is that business has been changing over the last years, right? And it's no longer enough to just drive financial performance. It just isn't, right? And it's not just, it's your shareholders are telling you that as well, right? The number of ESG investors in our company has increased significantly in the last years. I know that there's conversation in the US about this, but I believe it's here to stay. It's not going to go away. Consumers are demanding it from you, right? Even in the B2B market, our customers are asking for it. They want to know that they're doing business with a responsible business. And your employees as well, right? A lot of employees are driving it. They're basically saying, look, it's not enough to just be profitable. We want to be more. We want to be proud of the company that we work for. And when you look at attracting Gen Zs or millennials into the workforce, it's a decision-making factor for them, right? They say, okay, we want to work for a company that's responsible. And on top of that, I think that in recent years, also with the support of the ILO and the African Union and so many other institutions like that, there's increased regulation and legislation that is starting to force businesses to have to take action. You can't just ignore it anymore. I live in Europe, I live in Germany, and in Europe we have a new legislation coming out called CSDDD. And you basically, as a company, you have to be very transparent in your entire supply chain, not just when it comes to environmental issues, but also human rights in your supply chain. So you better know what's going on, right? And if something is happening in your supply chain, you're not just asked to mitigate the risk, you have to remedy it. So all of these factors, I think, are playing a role that make sure, or that make businesses understand they can't ignore it anymore. And what we're basically saying with social procurement is, in the absence of, sometimes you're not able to, drive complete transparency into your supply chain, right? Because the last mile is usually the hardest. And what we're basically saying, look, if you purchase from social enterprises, the likelihood of risk popping up is very low. And I mean, you've heard from all these incredible social enterprises, right? They're models for how to treat employees right, how to pay them in the right way, how to drive impact. So it goes well beyond the social impact that they're driving towards community. It's also internalized in terms of their business practices. So it acts as a proxy, right? The more social enterprises you integrate into your supply chain, the cleaner your supply chain is, right?
I wonder how you think about that, Gilbert, because of course there was a time when labor unions were the answer to this set of problems. We said, workers have to organize and they have to push back against big corporations, and that's the way they get their rights. Here we have this new kind of business that says, from day one, we're going to treat our workers differently. And we're going to treat our customers, our whole community, differently. The world wasn't set up necessarily with social enterprises in mind. They're an innovation. How do you think about where they fit in the constellation of organizations you have to deal with at this official level at the UN?
No, there is I can confirm what a colleague from SAP was saying, that there is a major evolution in the business way of thinking. Not just because of philanthropic reason, not just because that change is also good for business. On that, because of the requirement from customers, from shareholders, and so forth. What is very interesting, I would tell you, for example, in the last 2-3 years, something that we have been pushing is the whole idea of a living wage. More and more getting away from minimum wage, but a living wage. It's so, for us, as I'm speaking, we have 240 million people that are working more than 45 hours a week, yet they are not able to pay their electricity bill on that across the globe. So, and it's private, some multinationals that are joining ILO to lead that effort on that. Even yesterday, I was meeting with some of the CEO on that. So to tell you that there is that shift. And we also in ILO, we are really not only welcoming that, but adjusting the discussion. Yes, they see a lot of the European directive that you were referring to on the transparency on the supply chain. It is true that viewed from private sector, there are challenges. Okay, if you're sitting in Germany and you have a supplier in Dhaka or in Côte d'Ivoire, and your ability to ensure that supplier comply to all ILO or the Human Rights Convention is risky, is difficult. We recognize that. But we have to start somewhere. And this is what is going on. And thirdly, what we also have noticed, when you look at the youth, it is very clear that part of the decision-making incorporates, as you said, how proud they're going to feel in working for you. It's not just a matter of looking at the financial viability or the economic viability dimension. And also the flexibility that you are providing to them. We are also being challenged in ILO because you could see that the interest of the youth to be part of trade unions is going lower. That the unionization rate is a challenge now for trade union. Next year, we're going to have a major discussion which will also touch on the social and solidarity economy, discussion on the platform economy. That we know is a major driver for economic growth, a major driver for job creation, entrepreneurship creation. At the same token, it's a little bit of wildlife as well there from minimum protection. So my point, I'm very hopeful, very positive. But I couldn't agree more with you in terms of those new direction that we see, but the economy, the world economy, and the requirement for on the social side are moving.
Yeah, you can think about it. In some ways, it's very easy to end up with a race to the bottom. And if all you care about is price, you can end up just pushing everyone to squeeze every penny. And where do they squeeze it from? Their workers, their community. Labor unions were formed to kind of reverse that. And here we are in this new moment where young people in particular are saying, as consumers, as voters, as employees, like, look, we don't want to be part of that race to the bottom. Mm-hmm. And that's creating this groundswell that's causing all of this to change. But as I think we've heard from the prior panel and from the great social entrepreneurs we heard today, none of this is easy. And I guess I wonder, coming back to you, Dave, you've been very successful, but there's not many behind you. I mean, this is tough. So if I'm right, you were on Shark Tank. I think you were like the highest grossing business ever to come out of Shark Tank, which is its own kind of platform, right, for entrepreneurs. But for the many millions of entrepreneurs all around the world who want to get in this space, have you any lessons that you've picked up along the way that you think can help guide us as we think about how we grow this ecosystem and support them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first is that, when I started this business, I didn't start it the way that I think a lot of my peers who started, similar direct-to-consumer or brands did, which was aspirations of $1 billion, blah, 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 whatever vanity metric that they wanted. My goal was, I want to create a company. I don't care how big it gets. I just want it to be sustainably impactful. And because we approached it from that lens, when we wrote out kind of the financial statement on day one, we kind of said, like, all right, if the product costs this and then the donation product costs this, what do we need to charge? And the way that kind of the unit economics flowed through, we kind of were like, it's either going to work and the consumer's going to accept it, but we're not also like, we're not passing that cost down to the consumer. We're not saying, oh well, our competitor price is 10 and we're 12. You got to pay for that. We at scale got the benefit of large scale of unit economics, where the donation product, because we're producing in such high volumes, a few times a year, we were able to get that price significantly down because it's limited in the SKU, and that formula ends up being the way that we're able to kind of have such impact. On $400 million of revenue this year, we'll donate about 40 million items, and if the shelter partners were purchasing those, at retail, they'd probably be spending anywhere from $1 to $2 a pair. So this is about $40 to $80 million worth of retail cost. Whereas for us, it costs about 50 cents a pair, because we're getting that, and we're not taking a margin on selling it to a shelter partner. So because of that, the model works, right? And I think for social entrepreneurs, like, it's nice to have these grandiose, I want to do this, 1% for that, or 10% of profits, but it has to work. Yeah. Like, you've really got to like take your social part off for a second and say, like, from a business standpoint, does this work? And I think the ones that have succeeded, are the ones where the unit economics ultimately work, and the consumer, they're also filling a business need. The last piece of it, the other piece of advice that I will say, and this is not as concrete to, you have to do this for success. I just had found that one of the big keys is you have to get close to it and stay close to it. So for us, at Bombas, we have about 30 different volunteer activities every single month. We're based here in New York City. It's obviously very helpful, because a lot of organizations and a lot of people facing homelessness here. But myself, my team, everybody's getting out there every single month and interacting with this community firsthand. And it reminds them that when they go back to sit down at their desk, they're like, right, that's why I'm doing this, right? That's why a lot of the best people that are working for us, they could go work other places and probably make 25%, 30% more on pay. They could go work for Facebook, they go work for Google, but they choose to work at Bombas because they know that their work is having bigger impact in the world than simply creating another widget or another driving a bottom line in another company. But that being said, we also are leading, when we look at our public company comps, we're one of the more profitable businesses. And again, I think that's because we built the business that way. We're not like we're only a 5% EBITDA business because we give part of our profits away. Like, we're an 18% EBITDA company. Like, and for a retail company, that's pretty, that's among the highest, especially in direct to consumer. So, I think the success that we've had is largely because we've thought it all the way through and make sure that at the core, the business works. Because without the business working, the business then wouldn't scale, and then we couldn't scale our impact with it.
Yeah, I think the analogy to that is a lot of companies are doing what SAP is now doing, or maybe not enough, but many of them are moving in the direction of saying, we're not going to do this as a side project. We're going to mainstream it in our business. And where we can do that, we can have real impact. We just have a very little time left, but on the same point, Alex, I want to hear what you are thinking now, but just what can we as a community, as a CGI community, do if we want to see this social enterprise ecosystem grow?
So honestly, I think that it's the core thing to do is to invest majorly in ecosystem building and infrastructure building. I've seen so much. That's been my core learning, honestly, in the last few years, because there's so much investment, so many programs going into accelerators, incubators, sort of like pieces of the puzzle. But there's very little investment going into putting all of the puzzle pieces together and making sure that the infrastructure is creating a thriving environment for social enterprises. And we do it. We invest pretty massively in ecosystem development. And we do it through unrestricted funding, right? We're basically saying, okay, look, you're like the Global Alliance for Social Entrepreneurship or Purchasing with Power, with purposes here, Catalyst 2030 with Africa Forward. We're giving them unrestricted funding. We say, we trust you. We know you're doing the right thing. But we're one of the few that are doing it, right? And I'm like, I don't understand this. Because if you want this to succeed long term, you have to make that investment into the ecosystem. And I think that people just see it as unsexy because it takes a long time for results to show. Yeah. But it's absolutely essential.
Unsexy, and it's hard to take credit for it, right? Because you can't really attribute. You're just one of many others. But if we can build the space together over many years, you can see what kind of change is possible. Gilbert, help close us out with a final thought of where we, as a CGI community, can take this.
I mean, one final thought for me, to add to what my colleague panelists were saying, is the capacity building. Is the capacity building, the training. And when you put all of that together, the more we'll be able to have platforms, to train people, even how to start your business or how to solve the problem on those, is going to be essential. It's not just about the financing side or having the motivation or the idea, but it's also, at the end, it's a business and you want them to be successful, and therefore business training and all the capacity building, particularly in the context of IT, is going to be, is also crucial.
I'll just say one gratifying thing for me as we close is, when we started DevX, I was a grad student. It was a student project. I mentioned at the beginning, I called it a social enterprise briefly, and then I just dropped it because nobody knew what I was talking about. Now, when I go back to universities and I go to business school classes and they want to talk about their career options, most people want to do social entrepreneurship. It's not a rare thing. It's not a fringe thing. It's where everybody wants to be, and they either see it starting something or joining a startup or some innovator or joining one of the biggest businesses in the world or joining the UN. Like, they want to be an intrapreneur in a big corporation or an entrepreneur starting something new. It's a mindset. And I think we all as a community kind of owe a debt of gratitude to this new generation, because that's a big reason why we're going where we're going. And it's just so fantastic to see this progress report today at CGI. So thank you all for being a part of it. And thank you, CGI, for bringing this to your stage.
Thank you.
Our final main stage program starts at 4:45, featuring a performance